real quick, hi guys, this is Jacqueline Hanna with Food Co-op Initiative, and you guys have been asking for updates from some of your fellow startup food co-ops that are in stage 3, further along, ready to open their stores. And the one we've had the most requests to talk to and get an update from is the North Flint Food Market in Flint, Michigan. And I am very lucky today that I have been able to secure just a little bit of time with this very busy team of Pastor Reggie Flynn and Arlene Wilborn, the general manager at their co-op. Thank you both so much for being here today.
Most welcome.
Thank you.
Good to be with you, Jacqueline. Thank you for the invitation.
Oh, you're so well. We thought, we know you guys how busy you are right now. We didn't know if you'd have the time. For those who don't know your project, and I think most of the startups watching this will, can you just tell us a little bit about your food co-op and where you are in your development?
Sure. I'd like to answer that from the context of why we even organized and what we are seeking to accomplish, our mission, our goals. So just in case your audience is not aware of what transpired in Flint, there was this national disaster called the water crisis. And the water crisis, really, our efforts were a direct response to the water crisis because in 2014, when the state literally poisoned over 100,000 people, the direct and immediate corporate reaction with the 2 grocery store chains that was situated in what we call the North Flint area closed. A Myers and a Kroger's. One was 74,000 square feet facility. Another was an 80,000 square feet facility. And so when both of those grocery stores closed, residents at the grassroots level, they protested in the parking lots. They were really concerned about what was going to happen to them in terms of accessing food. And so that led to a small meeting occurring in the auditorium where the school that I founded is located, and talking about what are some of the solutions. And one of the solutions that was proposed was that I go to the Chamber of Commerce and the Kroger's and encourage them to not close. And I refused to do that. And they asked me why. I said, because they've already made a business decision. Now it's up to us to be creative in us making the determination and also setting forth a plan to feed ourselves and not be under the control of those who are making business decisions that directly impact us. That led to the idea of a food co-op. So everybody's, well, what's a food co-op? So I don't know what food co-op is. So we began the process of learning, and that's when we connected with FCI and others, the startup conference, and we began to learn. And we began to take what we learned back home, and we began the process of starting a food cooperative. But there were some things that I would distinctly recall, and mind you, this is 4.5 years ago. Okay, almost 5 years. And so, but there was some real tangible and meaningful goals that were established. One is we wanted to expand access to healthy food in a low-income community to eradicate this food desert, or what I refer to as food apartheid. Okay. And then we wanted to create jobs, local jobs. And then we wanted to control the business enterprise that we established. We wanted to own it. And so as we learned from our food co-op conferences, we would see on t-shirts, we own it. And we took that on and began to verbalize it and began to really talk about it during our monthly community engagement and store organizing meetings. And so those are the specific mission-oriented goals that we wanted to accomplish. And so that's really, I mean, it's brief and in a nutshell, but that really is why we started. And so if you fast forward to now, we've had some significant milestones that we've reached. But of course, as the primary planner, and North Flint Reinvestment Corporation is the nonprofit entity that is really funding and providing the management, program management, project management services to the establishment of the North Flint Food Market. So in that role, we have been pursuing grant dollars, raising money, working with the steering committee, the North Flint Food Market Steering Committee. Arlene, our general manager, does a fabulous job with really connecting with the steering committee, working collaboration, making sure that we are collaborating at the grassroots level, that we are communicating the same message, and that we're really organizing for the purpose of continuing to expand our membership base. So I feel like I'm running on. Do I?
You do it so well. It's such a good synopsis. I wasn't going to cut you off. So I think the background is super important to who North Flint is and why you're organizing. And I'm glad you pointed out to those watching, it was pointed out by Pastor Flynn that there is a nonprofit organization that's helping them support and organize this. And that's actually becoming more common for startup food co-ops, especially if they're attempting to address food apartheid in a neighborhood, that there is a nonprofit behind. And I know people have had a lot of questions about that. We're not going to go too far into that today. I think where we're kind of looking to hear is what's been going on, especially since COVID. Where are you guys at in your process? Is there a site locked up? Are you guys running into funding challenges? Like what's the deal in this very moment for you guys as the co-op is getting closer and closer to opening?
Well, let me tell you, although we've made some significant inroads, and as I mentioned, reached some meaningful milestones, we have had some major setbacks with this project, and I'll just be candid with you. One of which is a formidable obstacle, has been the financing. I've talked with you about that before, Jacqueline, the funding and the financing of this project. You know, when you talk about cooperatives, philanthropic communities are not familiar with food co-ops, and they see them as high risk. And they don't see a food co-op working if they don't see a traditional grocery store working. Particularly in a high poverty, low income community, that's the reality that I've encountered in raising dollars and solidifying the financing structure for this project. So one of the major setbacks is during the COVID. Well, prior to the COVID, we were approved by advocating to our local representatives. We have a state representative who we've been talking to for a number of years concerning, also national, Senator Debbie Stabenow has been, and I don't know if you recall, but during the Flint water crisis, there was a town hall meeting, and she said, we're going to get a grocery store in North Flint, and I held her feet to that fire.
We remembered that.
Yeah, and I trust me, I make her remember. Yeah, good to hear you again, Pastor Flynn. Yeah, I said, you promised me to have a grocery store in North Flint. But we've been, one of the things that I've learned during this process is the importance of building political capacity. It's extremely important. And I don't know if that's in the book that we studied, but those folks can make a difference with your project, and they need to be aware of what you're accomplishing, and they need to be on the team, really. And so going back to your question concerning the COVID, just prior to COVID wreaking its havoc in this country, in this world, really, we were approved for $500,000 state allocation in the governor's incremental budget. And it was sitting on her desk. Literally, I received the calls from our local representatives congratulating me that we received the allocation, and it just needed to be signed. A week later, COVID hit, and she had to veto all of the supplemental budget items, and ours was at the top. That was painful.
Oh, God.
Painful, because that closed what we had at that time was a gap in our funding and our financing. And so we had to go back, and we had to adjust the scope of work on our project. So now I can't have all of my parking lot, new parking lot. and now we can't have the community wing, which we had planned. So now we have to do it in phases. And so as a part of this food cooperative, there's a real estate development piece to this. And so that was a major setback. I cried for a few days on that.
Oh my God. And just, you understand what happened, but painfully short-sighted. Nothing could have addressed the needs of her community during COVID more than this grocery store, but it was just on the stack, and oof.
Yeah. So we had to adjust to that. But now we're getting back in the saddle. We're moving forward. We've got some, I think for us right now, to cross over the finish line, we need what we call a new market tax credit allocation. And so there are several CDEs nationally that are viewing our project, LISC being one of them.
Yeah.
And so I would share with the audience the importance of connecting with CDEs like LISC and even banking institutions that are seeking to meet their Community Reinvestment Act requirements. And so that's where we are. It really right now it's the financing of the project, which puts us kind of in a standstill until we hear from one of these financial institutions about their allocating the new markets tax credit to select our project.
And that's nerve-wracking. So those of you who haven't heard of this, the new market tax credit, it doesn't apply to all startups. It will, especially though, and it has in a lot of cases though, it has. So stay aware of what that is. And as Pastor Flynn said, CDEs, and it's a very hard thing to explain. I'm not going to explain it, but you can't apply for it directly. You have to find a partnership that can apply for it. It's very complicated and convoluted. It can be very beneficial to your project, though, if it becomes necessary. And actually right now, Gem City completed theirs. Gem City got theirs in Dayton, Ohio, most recently, and they are actually writing up the whole process and what it was like and what they had to do, and that's going to be coming out from FCI later this year. And we might be pestering Pastor Flynn to contribute a little to it too, so you all know what it was like and what you should know ahead of time. So on that, I want to pivot a little bit. As all of this is going on and you're trying to get that last piece of financing and you're building political power, you've got to grow ownership, and COVID has hit. What has that been like, Arlene? I hear that you're kind of heading up, making sure that continues to move forward, if I heard correctly. How has that changed? Has it not changed, really staying in contact with your owners and growing more owners?
Good question. It has changed. And the thing is, you're thinking about safety. You want to make sure that all of your member owners, as well as new owners, that you are conducting safe practices in order to grow membership. So Zoom has been one of the key words in this COVID-19. And once again, when it comes to Zoom, that is a new process for some of us. And when it comes to our seasoned member owners, trying to keep them attached on what's going on, they're having some hiccups when it comes to Zoom. And that's understandable because this is something new to all of us. And we have had to reach out different ways to keep people informed on what we're doing. And of course, people have your email, they have your cell phone number, they use it quite often. But you also, when you're out talking among people, you got to use a mask. And sometimes using masks are not that easy when we're in 80-degree, 90-degree weather. And you're trying to talk through this mask about a project, and sometimes your words may get a little muffled, or there may be more conversation that needs to happen. But we have found ways to reach out by passing out flyers, passing out information that you can read at your leisure, making sure that you're making yourself available, because there's so many questions that people may have that they may not feel freely to ask you face to face, rather than if you're on a phone call or a Zoom call. But we are still growing membership. We have not stopped. I will say that our volunteers, they're coming through. we used the election in August to help increase our engagement, and that was a great way to get out there in the community. And there's some other local events that are happening that we're also being available for.
Excellent. And I want to point out something Flint's always been really unique at and good at. So I want other co-ops to hear this is actually not being afraid of the phone number and the text. A lot of y'all, I understand it because it's like you personally, like I don't want to hand out my phone, but I don't know if you remember some years when the Flint team has come and they come in mass to Up and Coming. They've had t-shirts on with a phone number you can text anytime if you have a question, if you want someone to call you back and talk about the co-op. And I just want to point out this is a tool that Flint has uniquely leveraged to really connect with their community in a way I haven't seen other startups do. So I wanted to point that out, that Arlene brought up again. She makes herself available by phone whenever people want to have that conversation. And it sounds like you're saying that pays off.
It does. It really does.
Excellent. Well, I have one more question for you guys, COVID related. We've heard COVID definitely affected funding, and I think I'm hearing, Pastor Flynn, there are pieces that aren't going to happen now that will, but are still planned to maybe happen later as financing continues to line up, or how far off in the distance do you see those pieces coming online?
Yeah, I from our local congressperson's office indicating that it may be a few months before we hear something from the governor's office. The governor of our state is aware of our efforts in Flint. And so we're getting a message from our local politicians that they're just throw the state budget out of whack. There are no promises that they're making. And so what we've decided to do is to continue our interaction with our local representatives, but on our end, we want to control what we can control. And what we can control is continue to engage the community, continue to grow our membership, continue the making sure that we're prepared with our the information that we secure from our consultants to make sure that our T's are crossed and I's are dotted, and also utilizing that team to access, because we're writing grants. That's one of the, I think, the advantages we have as a nonprofit entity is that we're able to continue fundraising. Continue writing grants. We've got a grant proposal submitted to for HFFI.
Yeah.
Got three or four opportunities that are out there. The philanthropic community is locally is very much engaged, and we're pursuing large and small grants through those entities, those locally, statewide, and regionally. So I think that although COVID has created a major problem for us, I think it's incumbent upon us to remain creative in ways in which we can leverage our existing dollars and identify future dollars for the project.
I'm just putting this out there if HFFI people are listening. I can't imagine a project that is a better fit for HFFI than the Flint, than the Flint Food Co-op. I just want to put that out there. So I know others of you have applied, but and I'm always rooting for all of our co-ops, but very much their focus is on food access and food justice, and my fingers are extra crossed.
Thank you.
For you guys. I know this also to some degree is affecting a lot of co-ops store design. And Arlene, I wonder if it's making you think differently since COVID about what will and won't be in your store and how you will keep people safe once it's open.
Yes. One of the things that we looked at is when it comes to the bulk food section. And when it was first developed, they wanted us to have a bulk food section that you can just reach down and, place a bag underneath and the food will come out. Well, when that was discussed with me, I absolutely said no in the beginning because we want to ensure sanitation at all costs. And I just felt that some, not all, would be trying to use their hands to grab the food and they would contaminate the whole bulk section. So when I explained that to the designers, they said, okay, well, let's remove that piece and let's go with already packaged bulk section. And I was all on board with that piece. And we also are looking at this deli area, making sure we don't have salad bars, because we're trying to prevent our residents for using the handles with their hand, and that would just contaminate the food as well. So that piece was already eliminated prior to COVID-19. But once COVID-19 hit, we're looking at even our cashiers. How do we protect them? So shield guards is definitely something that we're going to need. But it is an eye opener. And I'm glad that we're at the stage where we can redefine how our store is going to look before we put it in place.
Yeah, no, you're right. That's a silver lining that you've had that opportunity. And I want to point out that this is something to start food co-ops your GMs will be thinking through, and GMs across the country are landing slightly different places with it. Some are doing absolutely no bulk other than pre-pack, as Arlene has outlined, for very good reasons. And some are doing it, but only gravity feed where you can't put your hand. There's different responses, but you're going to be wanting to look for your GM to be thinking through the effects of COVID, keeping people safe, and why a solution is the right one for your community. And Arlene's very clear that pre-pack is the right solution for her community. And I would be totally, I support that, and especially thumbs up to no salad bars. You know, we're looking for new solutions to those things. Some co-ops are reopening them, but you know, thinking about the safety of the future, you're going to be wanting to hear your GM thinking about that the way Arlene is, that she's putting some deep thought into that and what's going to work and not work for her community, that leadership on store safety will be coming from your GM. But a lot of you have asked about, are they changing their design because of COVID? So I wanted to touch base and ask you how that might have been affecting your design plans. Well, any last thoughts that you guys, this has been terrific. You're both such, you know, like, you know exactly what you want to share with us. Any thoughts that you want your peers out there to hear right now about what's happening with North Flint? Arlene, when you and I were talking before we started recording, you mentioned something about why, yeah, you know, that it's tougher to be in contact with owners. We're having to be creative, we're pivoting, but in a way, why COVID has only reinforced to the community the importance of the co-op. I wondered if you could speak to that again for a minute so others could hear.
Well, we have to have a store in our community. Right now, there is no local grocery stores that our residents can have access to healthy foods. Key thing is the healthy food initiative. And so much of our project relies on us having a grocery store in our community. I can tell you that when it comes to my family, they're still having to go so far to get food under COVID-19, risking their livelihood to go into a store. Mm-hmm. And if you notice, many stores are not stocked with the with the ingredients they need, because it's in so high demand that our residents are having to travel further to get what they need. And it's so dire need that we get the North Flint Food Market up and running so we can take care of our residents and provide them access to healthy foods.
And you said you're actually getting calls now asking if you guys are open because people need access and they're hoping your grocery store is actually already open.
I get calls pretty much every other day asking me, what time are you open today? And I said, no, we're not at that stage yet, but if you would like to become a member owner. And then I go through this whole spiel of becoming a member owner, and they just tell me that they are in need of food. So it is something that's passionate in my heart that we have got to get our store up and running.
Very clear. Pastor Flynn, some final thoughts from you to share with the development community, other people who are starting food co-ops?
Yeah, I do, particularly for those who are seeking to open and operate and sustain a store in a low-income, high-poverty community with a concentration of African Americans, because this is, I think, what COVID has done. It has really revealed to us some startling inequities and disparities some that we already know exist, but really I just know is really important for us to address. And I think for the co-op world, it's important for us to be intentional. This experience that I've had is really has changed me, literally changed me, and I am going to be even after we open the doors and we get settled, I'm really going to make myself available to help with opening stores in urban communities where co-ops don't exist, and they are so much needed, as Arlene mentioned. And so what I do want to leave with is a final word to those who are seeking to open a co-op, and that is in these early stages, as you move through the processes and encounter obstacles and challenges, don't give up. Just remaining to remain determined and be persevering in your efforts and unrelentless. And I want you to make sure you remember that word, being unrelentless. You believe what you're doing is going to be beneficial not only to you, but your larger community. You're going to have to be relentless to access resources, to compete with others for resources. And so I just want to give that word of encouragement, because there have been times during this 4.5 years that I've said, I didn't sign up for this. And then as you know, as I get weak, I'll get a call. You guys have secured a grant, and okay, that's what I needed. I needed some hope. So I just want to encourage people to persevere, remain dedicated and committed to the cause of controlling your food supply, and also establish your business enterprise so that we can be a determined people in this effort of establishing our food cooperatives.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much, Pastor Flynn, and to Arlene Wilborn, who is the general manager of the North Flint Food Market. And I know people are going to have questions for y'all. Keep in mind, they're in stage 3. They are super, super busy. But if they do want to reach out to you guys for any further thoughts, especially those organizing in very similar communities, can we share an email or a way that they can get a hold of you?
Sure. They can reach us at 810-620-1974, or you can use my email address at wilborna@aol.com.
Excellent. Thank you both again so much for your time, and we are all rooting for you, and we can't wait to see those doors open.
Yay!
Thank you.